Welcome guys to Book Talk. Woo! So today we're going to be talking about Diary of an Oxygen Thief. For those of you guys who have not read Diary of an Oxygen Thief, here is a quick overview of the book. So Diary of an Oxygen Thief is a semi-autobiography, and it was published by an anonymous author. It was first published in 2006, and the book later gained wider popularity with the re-released by a major publisher in 2016, and it was known for its raw, unfiltered take on toxic relationships and emotional manipulation. The book stands out for its unique narrative styles and a brutally honest tone. So throughout this entire book, we don't really get to really know the author in terms of just his kind of narcissistic tendencies and kind of how he goes through life. The author of the book remains a mystery, though many speculate that the book is a fictionalized account of real experiences, which I kind of find it quite weird. But when I looked it up, just did a quick little Google search to try to figure out who actually did write Diary of an Oxygen Thief, there has been other speculations that it was an actual children's author who wrote Diary of an Oxygen Thief, which is really weird. Like, very, very weird, because if you're writing children's books, why are you writing about this, you know? Like, why are you writing about, like, toxic relationships and emotional manipulation, narcissism, and stuff that we'll get into later on in this podcast? Super weird. The author's decision to remain anonymous aligns with the confessional and raw tone of the novel, making it feel more like a private diary than a traditional story. The setting, the novel takes place primarily in Europe and later in the United States, as the narrator moves between different locations, including Ireland, England, and New York. The settings are often described in a minimalist manner, with more attention paid to the narrator's emotional state and his relationships than to detailed descriptions of his environment. This lack of detailed setting reflects the narrator's introspection and detachment from the world around him, focusing the reader's attention to his inner turmoil. So the narrator's mindset throughout the novel, the narrator presents himself as a deeply flawed, self-aware individual who derives a twisted satisfaction from emotionally manipulating women. At the beginning, he reveals in his ability to hurt people emotionally, particularly women he becomes involved with. He likens himself to an emotional sadist who thrives on power and control, openly admitting to his cruelty without remorse. The narrative voice is unapologetic, of course, because he's a narcissist, and candid, giving readers insight into a toxic, narcissistic mindset. Despite his initial confidence, the narrator's mindset begins to shift as he starts to experience the consequences of his actions. He falls in love with a woman only to have her manipulate and betray him in a way that mirrors his own past behavior. This experience leads to a sense of vulnerability and regret, forcing him to confront his own emotional wounds. By the end of the novel, he is no longer the manipulator, but the manipulated, consumed by guilt and bitterness. Which, of course, hurt people. That's pretty much what this book is all about. The narrator's journey is marked by self-loathing and longing for redemption. While he remains unable to fully atone for his past actions, he becomes more reflective, recognizing the emptiness and self-destructive nature of his behavior. So the woman at the end of this book, I will say, pulled, like, he just got Kai-Sanated.
You like to go on a date with me?
But we friends though.
You're right.
Yeah, we friends.
You're right.
Yep, he got Kai-Sanated. So the themes of this that we really do need to take into account is emotional manipulation and toxicity, narcissism and self-destruction, And number 3, redemption and self-awareness. Look at you, being self-aware of your own actions that are disgusting. Cool. So emotional manipulation and toxicity. The book explores the nature of toxic relationships, highlighting the power dynamics involved in emotional manipulation. The narrator's relationships serve as a cautionary tale about the damage caused by using love and trust as tools for control, which also means just a very, very bad person. Narcissism and self-destruction. The narrator's narcissistic tendencies and desire for control ultimately leads to his downfall. The novel portrays narcissism as a double-edged sword, where the manipulator becomes trapped in his own emotional game. Which this happened to me before. Because apparently, according to some of my friends, my best friend Ben, shout out to Ben, that I have narcissistic tendencies. Which is not something you want to hear from a friend. But I understand where he's coming from. Okay. Number 3, redemption and self-awareness. Although the narrator's journey is largely one of self-destruction, there are moments of self-awareness where he begins to question his behavior and motives. This theme of attempted redemption adds depth to the character and raises questions about whether people can truly change, because I had no faith in him at all that he could change. And I'm surprised that he feels manipulated at the end of this book, because if I was a narcissist, I would have been on my high horse. I don't care if it's a double-edged sword. I would not let others know that they hurt me. Okay, the narrative style. The writing style is minimalist, controversial, and highly introspective. That's a funny word. Often reading like a diary or internal monologue. The narrator's voice is sharp, witty, and darkly humorous, making it engaging despite the heavy subject matter. There are no chapter breaks, which adds to the diary-like feel of the book, creating a continuous flow of thoughts and emotions. So, for the conclusion, the final overview for those of you who haven't read the book, Diary of an Oxygen Thief is a dark, compelling exploration of toxic relationships and emotional pain. The anonymous author brutally honest portrayal of a manipulative, self-destructive protagonist invites readers to confront uncomfortable truths about love, power, and human vulnerability. Through the narrator's journey is marked by cruelty and regret, the novel ultimately serves as a raw, cautionary tale about the dangers of emotional manipulation and the possibility of finding redemption through self-awareness. When I read this book, I really wanted to find a man who was exactly like this person in this book, because I wanted to see if I was able to manipulate him back. That's what I wanted to do, but did that actually happen? No, because that seems like a very, very long, emotional, deep rabbit hole that I do not want to get myself into at all, in the slightest. So we're not going to do that to ourselves. But it's a nice thought. It's food for thought. So my kind of opinion on this, it's super, super simple. This book is essentially a diary entry of a guy whose whole personality is hurt people. No shock there. And there's no real flow in terms of plots or events, and there's no character development. And there's really no growth, because he just rants the entire book. Pretty much. Like, he goes on long rants. Like, it was so draining to read sometimes, because he would just rant on and on and on. And I felt like I was talking to my best friend Ben. Shout out to you again, Ben. But he starts off the first 30 pages of this book being the worst person on the planet. Like, I mean, the worst person on this planet. Then he tries to persuade the reader that it's not his fault. Manipulation, yet again. But we never really get past the reasoning of someone else hurting him. So now, like, we never get past the reasoning of someone else hurting him that makes it okay for him to hurt other people. And we continue to see that throughout his relationships that continue. So years later, we hear about his quote-unquote new relationship. A girl who just didn't like him back, by the way. So one-sided relationship, I should say. And it's obvious that his inner self-work that he claims to have done hasn't made him any better of a person. And he uses this relationship to really mask the toxicity within his own life and makes it out to be a sob story. Attention seeker if I've ever seen one. Just saying.
I want to say thank you for today's sponsor, which is BetterHelp. I know therapy might not be something you've ever thought about, but over the years my mental health has seen highs and also real lows, and I found therapy to be a really helpful way of taking control of something that feels like I have no control over. So I'm happy to recommend it to all of you. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service. With them, you can tap into a network of over 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues. To get started, you just answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. And that way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then, you can talk to your therapist however you feel most comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist at any time and schedule live sessions when it's convenient for you. If your therapist isn't the right fit for any one reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-person therapy, but with a therapist who is custom-picked for you, with more scheduling flexibility and at a much more affordable price. So, join the 2 million plus people who have taken charge of their own mental health. Click on the link in the description and visit betterhelp.com. That is betterhelp.com.
And it's obvious that his inner self-work that he claims to have done hasn't made him a better person at all. Well, he makes it out to be a sob story that an attractive woman doesn't fall in love with him. But if she was actually attainable, he wouldn't be in love with her at all. And that just shows how narcissistic his personality actually is. And to be honest, I struggled with reading this book because on one hand, I can see the intent of the author to make the main character unlikable and unreliable as a narrator. We only get moments in his life through his own skewed perspective, and he claims he's a better person now because he's sober. Good for you for not continuing to be an alcoholic. Like, good for you. Do you want a medal? Like, oh yeah, you get the little token things from going to AA meetings. I think you collected enough of those. And you got yourself a little sponsor. Wow, look at you. No one cares. You know, you're still a terrible person. And he's sworn off to any relationship for 5 years. But we don't really see any of his actions actually change. And you know, maybe the author wrote that in a way to say, like, inner work is hard and some people, and the same people, like, people hurt people. And some people who hurt just hurt. But given the whole entire book, it just doesn't align with just a lot of really anything. It's really hard. It's really hard to align this entire book. I will give you that. The book was just a struggle to get the whole book was just a struggle to read. It was like the book was only 151 pages long, but it felt so much longer, maybe because of how much he rants about absolute nonsense. Like, he's just trying to, like, put his... He does too much in this book, and that irritates me, and I'm getting quite irritated. And I caught myself writing in the margins just, like, little comebacks and stuff, because if I didn't, I'd feel like I was being complacent with how this guy treated anybody in his life. And it's very sad. In a way, it opens the perspective of you can't change other people, and it's very hard to change for yourself without a true goal or want. So, would I recommend this book to other people? If you like listening to ranters, sure. The very first page of this book is very, very eye-catching, which draws a lot of readers in to this book. I will say that, because I found this book off of TikTok. I was just, like, looking for new books to read, something different, and everyone was talking about this book, and I thought it was really interesting based off the first page, but I felt manipulated because I thought I was gonna get, like, a whole really tragic backstory, and then he tries to change, but in reality he just can't change, which sucks. But I mean, hey, you can always try harder, and maybe this time want to be better, like have something to reach for this time. I don't know. This book is just really weird to read, but it was a good book, though. I will give it that. It was a good book. It was just very, very confusing on some parts because he just rants, but he doesn't give like full, complete detail this entire book. So like you get like really good detail on some parts of his story, and then like less details on some other parts of his life. So it's quite strange. But I definitely, like, on the book talk rating, a nice book talk rating, I'm going to give it a solid 7 out of 10. It's good to an extent, and then it gets boring, and then it gets good again, and then it just ends up being boring because he tries to, you know, do the whole sob story act on us, and I'm just like, dude, like, just imagine if this was like a real person, like if someone's literally telling you all of this, like this guy was just like telling you like all of the stuff that he did. Like, that would be boring. Like, that's so uninteresting, you know? It's just really boring. But it was a good book after all, so I will give him that. Tune in for next week's podcast on January 13th on a Monday. We upload every single Monday, and maybe you might find a couple guests on our podcast. We'll see.